Hello friends, welcome to the Leaf Sonata. I'm your host today. My name is Marquita. If this is your first time visiting me, welcome. I hope that you are loving the weather. It is November here in the southern United States. It is a true fall. The leaves are just about all falling off the trees. We've had lots of rainy, gloomy days, perfect days to sit in and just enjoy a book, and that is exactly what I've done. I've pulled out all my winter decor. I am a big lover of gingerbread men. They are just my thing. So 'tis the season for all the sweet cookies and chocolates, and oh my goodness. But I'm here today to talk to you about Krystal Marquis' new release, which is the Davenports More Than This. A new one of my favorite in dramas. This was so much fun. So I have quite a bit to say about it today. Just my thoughts. I'm going to try not to give a whole lot of it away. Many of you guys probably are finding me because you've already read the Davenports. As I mentioned before, that More Than This is the sequel to the Davenports. So hopefully you enjoyed this and you will not be disappointed. You will not be disappointed in the sequel. I think the only thing that's disappointing about the sequel is that it's just so obvious at the end that it won't be a trilogy. It won't be a series. But I did slide into the DMs of the author and ask, is there a possibility there will be a film adaptation? Because I just don't want it to end here. And she said, it sounds like it could be in the works. It's something for us to look out for. She's hearing a lot about it. I don't know how all that works, but I'm so excited because it's so good and it's so juicy. So if you have read the Davenports before, you know that this is it's multi-point of view between four people. The Davenports are they're filthy rich. They're your upper echelon family that's Chicago? Yeah, that's in the Chicago elite. And it's because the father, this is very much a patriarchal society. But you do see the progression. That's what I love about the book. But anyways, Daddy Davenport, he was a former slave who went on to build himself of this empire, really, of carriages, luxury carriages. And that's what the Davenport name is stamped on the side of them. Everyone knows them for that. But of course, we are still talking about a family that is a minority. As I mentioned, he was a former slave, and it's just so heartbreaking that he even has the lashes. So the unforgettable memory of it is branded on his body, you know? But he has three beautiful children. John, I believe John's the oldest, and then next to John is Olivia, and then there's Helen. And the point of views from the book are for women's point of views. You have Olivia and Helen, as I mentioned, but also Amy Rose, who is just say the housekeeper's daughter that was raised with them. She is the daughter of a slave owner as well, but her mother was a free woman of color. And then there's also the fourth point of view, which is Ruby Tremaine. I forget last name sometimes, whose family too is not as rich as the Davenports, but they're all in the same socialite circle, and her father wants to be the first black mayor of Chicago. So her family also is well known, and she has been in love with John Davenport since she was a child. So you have these four female point of views with lots and lots of backstory and dialogue between their male and romantic interests as well. So the romantic point of view, it's not left up to the imagination, which is great, which I like, which I prefer to know, how does he feel, how does she feel. But although this is definitely a romance, it's so much more than a romance. The women and their roles in society are so important. If you've already read the debut novel by Krystal Marquis, then you know where we left off. And it's so hard to talk about this because if you haven't read it, I don't want to give too much of it away. But we are here today to talk about the sequel, so I guess at this point you may want to stop if you don't want any spoilers to the first one. But so you stop here if you want. But we left off with Olivia in love with Washington Dwight, and she chose to, well, I guess you could say that, to stay in Chicago instead of instead of marrying him right off and going straight into activism with him, because he travels, he has to move around a lot. But she's still very much in love with him, although now her parents are trying to select a suitable marriage mate for her. And then we also have Helen, whose heart was broken by Mr. Lawrence, Jacob Lawrence. And of course, he went back overseas. Come to find out, there's so much more to the story than that. My mouth dropped. But Helen is still very much scarred and in love with Mr. Lawrence, who does enter her life again. Boy, was that something. And then, as I mentioned, Ruby and John didn't work out because John was in love with Amy Rose. And Amy Rose, as I mentioned, was a childhood, like a cousin to them. And she's beautiful. She's trying to make her own way in the world. Her mother has passed away. And she's teamed up with Miss Davis. Lord bless Miss Davis. Lord bless Miss Davis. Ooh, we all need a Miss Davis in our life. Bless Miss Davis, who has helped her in her entrepreneurship. And so she's moving on into the salon business, has her own hair care line, and trying to move on from John. And then Ruby. Poor Ruby. Oh, poor Ruby. Ruby, in my opinion, really had it the hardest. And it does not get easier for Ruby in the sequel. And of course, until the very end. Poor Ruby. Y'all, Ruby goes through so much with her and her, which is a very short engagement, now that I think about it. Because it's just a few months that have passed since the debut novel. Her short engagement with Harrison. Harrison's last name is not coming to me right now, but it will. So we have some new characters that have been sprinkled in that have and are very bold in their interests as well, that almost ruin relationships. So I don't want to give too much of away, but it is some drama. There is so much tea. With the 4 points of views, this moves so quickly. This is a 376 page book of rich, vivid, very vivid writing that puts you right in the room, right on the streets, right on the right on horseback, right in the cars, the dust, the wind, the autumn air. This was the perfect time to read this book because it's leaving from a lingering summer into the beginning of fall. Like, the release of this in November was absolutely perfect, at least for the southern United States. So good. So first, I would like to talk about the writing. I am mainly a classic reader. I love to read classic and vintage books because although I have a vivid imagination, I expect the author to write in detail, to write sometimes too, what I'm looking for, my preference is for eloquent writing that really makes you want to savor the writing, where you stop and you sit with it and you meditate with it for a minute. I don't know how Krystal Marquis was able to do this, but this is such a fast-paced book. But you're right there. Like, it's not overly detailed. It's not slow at all. Puts you right in the scene. And there's an air. Okay, so like, and it's not a pretentious type of air, But it's so funny to me. I have not experienced this with reading where the characters are not just defined by the author. It is as if, how do I put this? The pretentiousness that we would expect from an upper echelon, from the elite in society, like I mentioned, if I haven't, these socialites, is a certain air that they'll have. You know, there's a certain expectation, a certain flair to their dress, certain mannerisms. And the author doesn't just convey this as she's writing about them, she writes in that same style. She writes with such eloquence, and it's like you almost just sit a little taller when you read it, because not only are the characters rich, but the standard of writing is so high. You know what I mean? Like, I hope you know what I mean when you read it, because that's what I got from it. Like, we are elite. We have standards. And the writing is just, it's right up there with it. That I don't know how to put it another way except to put it that way. So not only are the characters described as being prestigious, so is the writing. And I absolutely love it, because you can breathe in. You can breathe. It's like you're breathing the same air as the characters. And like I said, it sits you up a little bit taller when you read it. So if you like classic movies, you like that classic drama where you a Betty Davis fan or a Joan Crawford fan, and they walk in the room and they stand among everyone else and they stand out. These are the type of characters. They fit that. They are the who's who, and they know it, but they also know to be humble, but still they also meet, how do I put it? They also meet the expectations. That is how Miss Krystal Marquis or Marcus, oh, please let me know in the comments below how you pronounce her name. That is how she wrote it. So you feel all of the prestige as you become part of the scene. You become part of the party, because there's a party. Helen has her debut, her debutante ball. You feel as though you're gloved and fully dressed to your ankles, you know, with everyone else when you're there. You fit in. I love that. I love that. And that's another thing, the diversity. The diversity and perspective and expectations don't just stop with the core characters of the group. Everyone feels it. And another thing that I've never read a book like this before, and another thing that I really, really, really appreciated was that, you know how like it's an almost all black cast, In many ways it is an all black cast, but each character is so important. Each character is respected, regardless of what your station is, and what your status is. And I know a lot of that has to do with where African American Black people have come from to this point, have risen to this point, because you were all on the same level playing field. And from there, because you see one make it, we all can make it. That is throughout the book, but very unsaid. You just feel it. And so this, the Davenports give you a sense of we and give you a sense of us. No one is left out. Whether you're a daughter of a slave, whether you're born free, whether you're trying to make it in the world, pull yourself up from your bootstraps, whether you rise to your station, but you still don't want to lose who you are. Because Olivia is very active in the movement, in the civil rights movement. Helen is very active in making changes for women in business, and so is Amy Rose. Ruby wants to do so much more than just be a pretty face and on Harrison's arm. She's gonna find a way and make a way for herself to put a stamp on with her passion, you know, like, and how they do it and what it means that they do this. It really resonates. I love this book so much. And no, I don't have a lot of tabs because I typically tab what's more poetic sounding, something I would like to go back to that's a little bit more flowery and it just sounds really pretty. I know. A lot of times when I tab atmosphere. This whole book is a mood. There wasn't. And it's so character, you know, the plot moves, no, don't get me wrong, but it's so character driven, but so much from the outside looking in. I mean, you still get their perspectives, don't get me wrong, but I guess it more is, it's such a medium between plot based and character based, but it's such a steady move. There weren't really a lot of moments that I just sit and lingered in. It was to the next sentence. And that's what I liked about it, because I'm not a TV watcher. You know, and typically whatever I'm watching on television, there was a book for it. You know, so this was my soap opera and it made me so proud. I do want to say one thing. I noticed it on the back, and I have not read the books and I have not seen the show because it's really not my cup of tea. This is a YA does not read, in my opinion. This does not read like a YA. This book has so much maturity. But on the back, it mentions that it's like a Bridgerton style. From what I've known, seen, and have been told about Bridgerton, in my opinion, this is more of a Downton Abbey type of style, which is much more my speed. It still moves along very steadily. The characters, the scenes, everything's very gripping, but you know, not so much spice. Just the same amount of drama. Thinking of Ruby. If you know, you know. Woo! She can hold her own. But like I'm saying, it's more of a Downton Abbey type of style, because I'm thinking more of the family type of dynamic, and how everything's so in the open. There's not a hole. Even though things are behind the scenes, there's nothing that has to be covered up and covered over. You know what I mean? And one more thing I've never experienced with the writer is, hold on, let me find my words. Another thing that I have never experienced with a writer is how Krystal Marquis writes emotion. And you know, the emotion of love, having romance, first time experiences, she nailed it. And what I'm saying is, this is a YA, as I mentioned, so there is not a lot of exploration into sexuality in this book. I've never read a book that was so consistently steamy, you know, like without spice. Perfect. Krystal was able to write raw emotions and give so many words. How does she do this? She gave you words for feelings that most people only feel and are not able to put in words. Like, how did she do that? She did that from first feelings to the feelings you're more comfortable with. And I'm talking about in a romantic way, how your body moves and feels with these type of interactions between love interests. And it's never inappropriate. So, and I say it's not inappropriate because they're true feelings, raw feelings, but they're not exploited. They go beyond the surface to give acknowledgement to the movements in your body, the rise and tension, the heat, the coolness, but it's never exploited. It stays with that character. If it moves anywhere in their mind beyond that, we don't know what it is because it is their own. So I've never experienced writing where romantic love has held its integrity but gave you that sting at the same time. So impressive. That really, really impressed me because I'm well beyond my years of being a young adult. And, oh, it just makes me so sad that this is written so well, nicely wrapped up in a bow, closed. This is it. I doubt there's going to be a series. Hoping it's true that it will be a film adaptation, TV adaptation, but I'm just glad that I have these hard copies to be able to go back and enjoy them over and over and over again. As like I mentioned, like shows like Downton Abbey. This was so good, you guys. I did not want to give too much away, but they're so good. Another thing that, lastly, the feeling that I love so much is at the ending. You just feel like you made it. We all made it. The feeling of accomplishment, courage. You can have it all. You can be a mother, you can be an entrepreneur. You can have it all and still be yourself. Like, I think that's so important to young readers, more mature readers, because so many of us are finding ourselves even later in life in stages that we would have thought we would have experienced younger in life, that we're just now in that situation now. And you can have it all. You can have it all. You can be it all. You just have to have the courage and put yourself out there and be honest, and it will pay off. Take those chances, make those leaps. You can have it. And it's just like it's in the title, life, or what you have, or what's expected of you, what's not expected of you, is so much more than what you are, where you are right now. Life is so much more than this. Love is so much more than what you're experiencing. Just, you can take it to the top. You can reach for the stars. I absolutely loved it. And I'm trying so hard not to give so much away, but I loved it. And I think anyone that picks it up at any age, you know, young adults, mature readers, adult readers, are really going to enjoy it. So thank you so much for spending time with me today. I hope I've convinced you that it's one you do not want to sit on your shelf, and one that you will read through so quickly. Oh, love it. But until I see you again, happy reading, friends, and I will see you again in the next one. Bye-bye.